The first thing my father ever took from me wasn't the ball, it was the right to dream. Elkhart, Indiana, 2025. The wooden bench groaned beneath me as I eased into it, same as I had every evening for the last few months. The late autumn air was crisp, the sun just a smudge of gold behind the maples. In my hands was a cracked Wilson basketball, soft with age. Its leather flaked and seams faded. Most folks wouldn't look twice at it, but to me, it was a memory I could still touch. Across the field, my grandson Marcus, skinny as a rail, all elbows and energy, was throwing up jump shots like the rim owed him money. He called out Kobe every time the ball left his hands, like the name itself made his aim truer. I smiled. That kid had spark, had it in his eyes, in the way he moved, like basketball wasn't a game but a promise. I knew that fire. I had it too once. Back in the summer of '68, I was 10, and the world was bigger than it felt now. My hoop was a rusted rim bolted to the barn, the backboard a chunk of scrap wood my uncle left behind. But it didn't matter. Every evening after chores, I'd be out there, barefoot in the dust, launching shots until I couldn't see my own hands. And then came the night my father walked out on the porch. I just hit 3 in a row. I was grinning so wide I thought my face might split. I looked back, holding that ball like it was the NBA trophy for anything. I wanted him to see, to say something, anything. But he didn't smile. Ball won't feed you, he said. Ain't no point chasing things that don't last. Then he did something I never forgot. He grabbed the ladder, walked over, and with one quick yank, he ripped the hoop off the barn wall. Didn't say another word. Just lit a cigarette and disappeared inside. That night, I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just sat there with the ball in my lap and something in me cracked. I didn't understand it at the time, but looking back now, I can say it plain. The first thing my father ever took from me wasn't the ball, it was the right to dream. Marcus doesn't know any of this. To him, I'm just grandpa, retired, slow on the knees, always sitting on this old bench with a ball in my lap and stories I never quite finished telling. But when I watch him shoot, watch him throw his arms up and laugh like the world's still wide open, something stirs in me. Not regret, not quite. Maybe it's the hope that a dream once stolen can still be reborn. Not in my hands, but in his. Elkhart, Indiana, 1968. Back then, we lived in a sagging, clapboard house that leaned like it was tired of standing. The kind of place where the paint had long since given up. The front steps creaked with every saw, and you could hear the trains through the paper-thin walls at night. We were 6 kids crammed into 3 bedrooms, and nobody ever got their own blanket, let alone their own dreams. Mom was always stitching something, factory uniforms mostly, needle dancing in and out of coarse blue fabric under the yellow flicker of the kitchen light. Her hands were always moving, even when her eyes looked half closed from the double shift. She smelled like starch and soap and sometimes tears she didn't have time to cry about. Dad? He worked steel. Came home every day with grease up to his elbows and a scowl that never quite left his face. If he was tired, he never said. If he was proud, we never knew. He drank his coffee black and his words bitter. Basketball, he once grunted when he saw me tossing a ball in the backyard. Ain't no game ever paid rent. That was his way. Not loud, just sharp. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't soft either. He didn't know how to be. Dinner most nights was beans and cornbread. If we were lucky, there was a slice of ham someone brought home from a church supper. You ate fast and didn't complain. If you didn't like what was on your plate, you could always wait until tomorrow and see if the menu changed. It wouldn't. We weren't starving, but we were always close. My brothers were rough, big hands, sharp mouths, hard eyes. They picked on each other like it was their job, and me, the dreamer, was always an easy target. NBA? My older brother Ricky snorted one night, wiping sweat off his forehead after splitting firewood. You ain't even 5 feet, dummy. You shoot like you're throwing bricks. The others laughed, and I forced a smile. That was the rule. If you didn't laugh with them, you became the punchline. Still, I'd sneak outside whenever I could. Just me, a scuffed ball, and a crooked rim Dad hadn't noticed yet. I'd shoot until the sun disappeared and the mosquitoes made it impossible to stay. I'd picture Madison Square Garden, crowds screaming, my name echoing off the rafters. But dreams like that didn't belong in houses like ours. They belonged in magazines, on the TV we didn't have, on posters kids from the other side of town tacked to their bedroom walls, kids with clean shoes and gym memberships, and dads who didn't come home angry. Get your head out the clouds, boy, Dad told me one morning before school as I was dribbling in the dirt. You want something real? Grab a wrench, learn a trade, stop chasing nonsense. That word stuck, nonsense. To him, basketball wasn't a sport. It was a luxury, a thing people with time and money could afford to play. And we had neither. But I couldn't let it go. Every chance I got, I practiced. In the alley behind school, on the playground after Sunday service, on the barn wall when no one was looking. I'd wipe sweat with the same shirt I wore all week and shoot until my shoulders ached. Not because I thought I'd make it to the NBA. Not even because I believed I was good enough. But because it made me feel like I could be something more than just another steel mill son waiting for a job that broke your back and stole your spirit. I didn't have words for it then, but I think I was chasing the feeling, not the fame. The feeling of the ball spinning off my fingertips just right. The sound of the net, when we had one, whispering that maybe, just maybe, I mattered. One day, Coach Renshaw caught me after school, said he'd been watching me play. You got natural court vision, he said. You ever thought about trying out for varsity? I nodded, hard hammering. It was the first time anyone besides me believed I might be something. I ran home, breathless, clutching the tryout slip in my hand like it was a golden ticket. But Dad saw the paper, read the word basketball, and didn't even finish the sentence. Trash, he said, crumpling it before I could stop him. And that night he yanked the rim off the barn wall, like it had been offending him this whole time. That was the end of it, or at least it was supposed to be. But sitting here now, watching Marcus chase jumpers with wild joy in his eyes, I realized something. Dreams don't really die. They just get passed down, waiting for someone brave enough to believe again. He was 10 the night he fell in love. It wasn't planned. He just wandered into the Elkhart High School gym by accident, tagging along behind his cousin who was delivering a bag of uniforms. The second he stepped through those gym doors, the world changed. The air was electric. The gym smelled like sweat, popcorn, and dreams. The squeak of sneakers on hardwood cut through the echoing shouts of players. The thump of the ball drumming the floor shook something loose inside him. But it was the crowd that did it. Their roar swelled with every shot, every fast break, like a wave crashing again and again. He didn't sit. He couldn't. He stood in the corner by the double doors, mouth half open, staring. He didn't even know the teams, didn't care who was winning. But when one of the seniors flew up and banked a shot off the glass, the gym exploded. People rose to their feet, hands slapped backs. Someone yelled, "That's how you do it, boy!" And in that moment, the kid who had never owned his own shoes felt a jolt in his chest, like lightning had kissed his ribs, like he had made the shot. He didn't say a word on the walk home. His cousin talked about how dumb it was that they lost by 2. He didn't hear him. His ears were still ringing with the crowd's cheer, with the echo of the ball hitting nothing but net. That night, sleep didn't come easy. He lay there in the dark, blankets pulled to his chin, replaying every move. How the guard dribbled behind his back, how the forward faked left and spun right, how the ball sang when it sailed through the air. He wanted that sound. He needed it. The next day he built his first hoop. It wasn't pretty. A rusted paint can rim, hammered flat with a rock, a coat hanger backboard bent into shape. He nailed the whole thing to the side of the shed with 3 crooked nails and all the hope in his body. The dirt patch underneath became his court. The whole world narrowed to that tiny square of space where dreams still felt possible. And after school, every day he was there. No coaches, no teammates, no cheers, just him and the ball. A half-flat rubber ball he had found in a neighbor's trash. The grip was gone and one side was worn smooth, but it bounced. And to a kid who couldn't afford new socks, that was everything. He dodged imaginary defenders, shouted his own commentary under his breath, down to the final seconds. 3, 2, a step-back jumper. The ball kissed the can rim and fell in. And he wins it for Elkhart. Sometimes when the wind picked up just right, he imagined the rustle of the trees was the crowd roaring for him. In that little corner of the world, in that forgotten backyard behind a sagging house, he wasn't just a poor kid with busted shoes and calloused hands. He was free, he was alive, and no one knew. Not his brothers, who would have mocked him for pretending like a fool. Not his father, who would have knocked the thing off the shed with a single swing of a hammer. Not even his mother, who was too tired to notice the dirt smudges on his shirt, came from layups, not chores. Basketball became a secret, but it wasn't shame, it was sacred. Every shot was a prayer, every swish was hope whispering, maybe one day. He didn't know where Madison Square Garden was. He just heard it on the radio once during a Knicks broadcast, and the name stuck like glue to his bones. He'd say it under his breath when he made a shot. Garden. He didn't know how far away it was, but he knew it felt a million miles from the rusted chain-link fence and broken bikes in his backyard. Still, every jumper brought him 1 inch closer. And every time he stepped onto that dirt court, he stopped being him. The quiet kid, the poor kid, the boy nobody expected anything from. He became the player. The game didn't care about his last name, didn't ask what was in his wallet, didn't laugh at his patched jeans or scuffed shoes. It just asked, can you play? And he could. Lord, he could. He played everywhere. In the narrow alley behind the house, where broken bricks lined the fence like jagged teeth. On the warped wooden porch, where every bounce risked a roll into the street. Inside the house, in stolen moments when no one was home, he'd dribble a half-deflated ball across the faded linoleum, weaving between kitchen chairs like they were defenders. No court, no net, no crowd. Just him and the ball. Always the ball. Shoes? Sometimes. Usually it was bare feet, toes blackened with dust, or a beat-up pair of Keds with the rubber peeling off. Grit wedged under his toenails, and the skin on his soles grew thick like leather. The sting of concrete never slowed him down. The game lived in him now, fierce and restless. No one in the family noticed. If they did, they didn't care. His brothers rolled their eyes when they caught him practicing layups off the porch post. His father just grunted and turned up the radio, and his mom, too tired, too worn, just smiled faintly and said, "Don't break nothing, baby." But he didn't care, because the court wasn't a place anymore. It was a feeling. It was the only place in the world where he wasn't invisible. At school, teachers forgot his name. At home, dinner was passed around without a glance. He was the quiet one, the skinny one, the one who didn't take up space. But out there, with a ball in his hand and the rhythm in his chest, he was seen, if only by himself. At night, when the house settled into sleep, he'd lie in bed wide-eyed, heart still racing. He didn't count sheep. He counted seconds on the clock, down by one, ball in hand. He'd close his eyes and see himself, headband on, knees bent, the crowd rising. He saw the flick of the wrist, the arc, the net whispering. He saw victory. He saw Madison Square Garden. The only TV he had regular access to was the dusty black and white set in the barbershop 3 blocks down. If he timed it right, Saturday mornings before the chairs filled, he could sneak in and catch the highlights. Elgin Baylor was magic. That spin move? He replayed it in his head 1,000 times. Practiced it until his socks wore holes sliding across the kitchen floor. He didn't have posters, so he sketched plays in the margins of his math notebook. Triangle offenses, isolation moves, imaginary buzzer beaters with his name on the scoreboard, pages full of X's and O's, drawn during class when fractions didn't make sense but fast breaks did. He knew stats better than multiplication tables. Could list the starting 5 for the Lakers faster than he could recite the pledge. His teachers called him distracted. His father called him foolish. But to him, it was focus, just not the kind they wanted. Because this wasn't just a game anymore. It was his refuge, his compass, his fire. Every time he dribbled, it reminded him, you're somebody. Not the kid wearing hand-me-downs, not the mouth to feed, not the nobody sitting quietly in the corner of the room, but a player, a dreamer, a fighter. And while the world around him stayed hard and cold, while the factory whistle blew and the bills piled high and the roof leaked when it rained, he had this secret blaze inside him. He carried it like a matchstick in his chest, small, fragile, but still burning. And in that fire lived every move he practiced when no one watched, every shot he imagined as the winning one, every voice in his head that whispered, you matter, you're more, even if no one else saw it. Yet, it happened on a Wednesday, late afternoon, the kind of Indiana sky that turns everything gray, where even the birds seemed too tired to sing. He'd finished his chores early, split the kindling, stacked the wood, so he figured 10 minutes on the shed court wouldn't hurt. Just a few shots, just enough to loosen the weight in his chest. He was mid-dribble, perfecting a right-to-left crossover, when the screen door slammed like a gunshot. He froze. His father stood on the porch, arms crossed, jaw tight, the kind of tension that made the air around him feel heavier. His work shirt was stained, and his hands were still black with steel dust. "What the hell you doing out here?" The boy opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "You think that ball's gonna feed us?" The words dropped like bricks. I finished my chores," he stammered. His father stepped down, slow and deliberate, like every movement was a warning. He snatched the ball from the boy's hands. Rough, final. "This ain't a game," he barked. "You live in this house, you work. You don't chase fairy tales." Then came the worst part. He walked over to the shed, yanked the paint can hoop clean off the siding, and tossed it into the trash. The ball followed, slammed the lid shut, locked it with the padlock they used for the tools. No words after that, just turned and walked inside. And the boy, standing barefoot in the dirt, felt like the wind had been knocked out of him without a single punch. That night, dinner was silent. The only sound was the clink of forks against chipped plates. Beans and cornbread again. His mother sat across from him, her eyes soft but hollow, silent in the way only someone deeply afraid can be. She didn't defend him, didn't ask questions. She looked like she wanted to, but fear lives long in women like her. Fear of what silence protects. The boy didn't eat much, couldn't. Every bite tasted like sawdust. When he finally slipped away and crept back to the shed, the chain around the trash can was still there. So was the padlock. The ball, his one thing, locked up like it had committed a crime. 2 days later, he brought home a flyer he found outside the school gym. A local youth tournament, weekend tryouts, no cost to enter. He smoothed it out carefully, placed it on the kitchen table, and waited for the right moment. His oldest brother Ricky got to it first. He picked it up, read the first few lines, and laughed. A mean, guttural sound that made the boy's stomach twist. "Get real, kid," Ricky snorted. "You ain't no star." Then, rip, the flyer was torn in half, tossed into the trash with the same finality as the hoop. Their sister Carla looked up from her ironing board and smirked. "Quit acting foolish," she said. "Ain't nobody in this family got time for pretend." And that was that. No one else said a word. It was as if his dream didn't just not matter. It was a threat, something that made the rest of them uncomfortable, something that didn't fit inside the tight walls of a house built on sacrifice and survival. From then on, every time he touched a ball, at school, in the alley, even just walking past the courts, guilt followed like a shadow. He'd feel his father's voice echoing in his chest, feel Ricky's laughter behind his back, feel Carla's eyes rolling in his mind. At home, he stopped talking about basketball, stopped drawing plays, stopped humming game highlights under his breath. He shrank into himself. The dirt patch by the shed turned brown with weeds. The shoes he used to wear for dribbling were tossed under the bed, forgotten. He told people he'd grown out of it, that it was just a phase. But the fire, it didn't die. It just dimmed, burned boxier, quieter, like a pilot light flickering behind ribs that ached with want. He still dreamed. He just did it with the lights off, alone. And the house, once just poor and noisy, began to feel like a cage, like every hallway echoed with the sound of someone saying no. But the worst part wasn't the rejection. It was the truth he couldn't admit. He was starting to believe them. He was 13 when it happened, when the spark flared one last time. It was late spring, the kind of Saturday that smells like cut grass and possibility. He'd heard about the rec league game from a classmate, and while he wasn't on the roster, that didn't stop him. He showed up early, clutching a pair of busted sneakers and a borrowed jersey 2 sizes too big. He told the guy at the desk his name was on the list. It wasn't, but nobody checked. He sat quietly on the bench, heart pounding. When one of the players didn't show, the coach looked down the line and said, "You, skinny one, can you run?" He nodded so fast his neck popped. The second his feet hit the hardwood, it was like lightning. He moved like he belonged there, like every dribble brought him closer to the kid he was supposed to be. He passed smooth, hustled hard, took a charge that made the whole bench rise. In the third quarter, he hit a bank shot that drew a few scattered claps. The coach, a wiry man with a whistle around his neck and eyes that had seen 1,000 kids come and go, pulled him aside after the final buzzer. "You got heart," he said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Not just hustle, heart." He handed him a folded piece of paper, a letter, county tryouts, next Saturday, top players, college scouts, one shot. The boy stared at it like it was gold. He didn't walk home, he flew. The wind whistled in his ears. The letter pressed to his chest. He imagined what it would feel like to make the team, to wear a real uniform, to have anyone believe. He ran into the house breathless, face flushed, smile wide. "Dad," he called, "you gotta see this." His father was sitting at the table, boots still on, grease still fresh on his arms. The smell of metal and ash hung in the air. He looked up slowly, cigarette smoldering between his fingers. The boy laid the letter down like it was a gift. His father didn't touch it. "What's this?" he muttered. It's a tryout, county league. Coach said I could make it. Said I had heart." He beamed. "If I make the team, there's scholarships, even college." His father cut him off with a flat stare. "You go," he said coldly. "Don't bother coming back." Silence. Not a yell, not a slap. Just that one line. He might as well have screamed it. The boy's mouth went dry. I need a ride or bus fare just to get to the gym." But his father turned away. There was no money, no ride, no warmth. Only a verdict. That night, the letter stayed on the kitchen counter, weighted down by a half-empty coffee mug. He stared at it through dinner. No one else mentioned it. No one even looked. The next morning, it was gone. He found it later, crumpled beneath the sink, wet from a leaking pipe. Unread, uncared for. He didn't ask who put it there. He already knew. 2 days later, his ball vanished. He searched the shed, the porch, the alley. Nowhere, gone like it had never existed. His brother Ricky wouldn't meet his eyes. When he finally asked, Ricky just shrugged. "Grow up, man. Ain't no one got time for games." He didn't argue. He just nodded. Quiet, small, and that was the summer the noise inside him went silent. No more sketching plays, no more midnight layups, no more garden whispered into the air. A part of him curled up and lay still, the part that believed. He spent the rest of that summer with his hands in the dirt, helping Dad fix the shed roof, stack firewood, dig out roots from the garden bed. He didn't complain, he didn't dream, just nodded, worked, slept. Something had changed, not in the world, in him. The fire was still there, somewhere buried under wood chips and old sweat and unspoken grief. But it no longer flickered in his eyes. He started walking with his shoulders down, started answering to boy without flinching. And no one said anything, because to them, it looked like he'd finally grown up. But deep down, he knew the truth. He hadn't stopped dreaming. He just learned where dreams go when no one wants them. They don't die, they get quiet, they gather dust, and they wait, patient and bruised, for someone to pick them back up. Elkhart, Indiana, 2025. The sun hangs low now, casting long shadows across the blacktop. The park is quiet except for the rhythmic thump-thump of a basketball and the occasional squeal of sneakers against worn pavement. Summer's nearly over, but the heat still clings to the air like memory. He sits on the same bench he's claimed for years beneath the old oak tree, a place that's watched kids come and go. The wood beneath him is cracked, just like the leather of the Wilson basketball resting in his lap. His hands, knotted with age, trace the familiar grooves out of habit. They're too stiff to play now, too frail to shoot, but they still remember the shape of a bounce, the weight of a dream. Across the court, his grandson Marcus is lost in the game. Skinny, all elbows and ambition, wearing shoes 2 sizes too big, and that same fire in his eyes. He's practicing a fadeaway now. Left foot planted, body tilted, release high. The shot arcs clean, kisses the backboard, and falls. Swish. The old man smiles, soft, sad, but proud. Because in that shot, he sees a shadow of who he was, who he might have been, and more than that, who Marcus might become. He's never told Marcus about 1968, never talked about the barn hoop, or the coach's letter, or the county tryout he never got to attend. He's never spoken of the flyer his brother tore, the ball his father locked away, or the summer he buried his dream in silence. Some stories, especially the ones that hurt, don't come out easy. They live beneath the skin. They settle into your bones. They wait. But even in silence, they speak. They speak through the way he grips the ball while watching the game, through the way his eyes follow every move, not just as a spectator, but as someone who still feels the rhythm in his chest. They speak through the way he never interrupts Marcus, never calls him inside too early, never asks him to be realistic. He just lets the boy play, lets him sweat, lets him shout Kobe, lets him believe. Because if there's one thing he's learned in 70 years, it's this. Some dreams don't fade. They don't age. They don't wither. They don't die with disappointment. They live in you, in the cracks, in the silence, in the creak of your knees and the beat of your heart. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they come alive again. Not through your hands, but through someone else's. Marcus jogs over, breathless and beaming. Grandpa, did you see that one? The old man lifts the ball and taps it gently against his knee. Saw the whole thing, he says, voice gravelly but warm. I think I finally got the release right. You did, he nods. You're getting there. The boy grins, then runs back to the court, already calling for the ball again. The old man leans back and watches, eyes glinting beneath the brim of his faded cap. He knows Marcus doesn't realize what this means yet, how sacred the game can be when the world tells you no, how it can carry you when nothing else will, how it can save you in small, quiet ways. He doesn't need to tell him that, not yet. For now, it's enough to watch, to feel the whisper of the past in the echo of a dribble, to know that the thing that almost died in him is alive again in someone he loves. The park grows dim as the sun fades. Streetlights buzz to life. The court glows amber and Marcus takes another shot. Fade away. Clean. Swish. And the old man smiles again, this time with a flicker of something more. Not sadness, not loss, but peace. Because sometimes the dream doesn't come true for you, but it lives on anyway. In the next kid who picks up the ball and runs.